Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. You are listening to Sunday Talk with Kellie and Lisa. I think I had a little bit of an echo there. Do you hear that, Lisa?
I don't hear it, but you do sound closer now, so that's good. Yay.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. Today is a little off day for me. What we wanted to talk about today, and I know a lot of people are really feeling it lately, is the stress that occurs this time of year every year. Whether you're in a situation where you're missing someone this year, you know, whether you've had a loss in your life or someone is overseas. I know a lot of people who have someone serving, or you're just financially stressed, or someone is sick. Whatever it is, even if it's just you're trying to get that perfect gift, this time of year is very, very, very stressful. And add in the whole COVID thing, and it just is a whole lot tougher for a lot of people. So how do you deal with that stress? Well, someone around me locally here got arrested for throwing things in the dollar store at people. Don't do that. That's not a good way to handle your stress. It makes for comedic relief sometimes, but no, there are other ways to handle your stress. Probably the easiest thing for people to do is if something is stressing you out, walk away from it or go for a walk. Go sit outside. Distance yourself from what is making you stressed out. One of the comments that I hear every year is people who don't necessarily get along with their families and they feel like they absolutely have to go and spend time with people they really would rather not spend time with. Please don't be one of those people. If you are stressed out by simply thinking about spending time with someone, you probably just didn't spend time with that person. Take it easy on yourself. What do you think, Lisa? What have you noticed, and what do you do if you're stressed over the holidays?
I run away. No, I'm kidding. So, you know, my newest catchphrase is the yin and yang to everything, right? There's the ebb and the flow. You have the good and the bad. It's like Schrodinger's cat. It happens both at the same time. And you pick your battles and set your firm boundaries. If you are not guilted into going to a relative's house, for example, set a time. I'm going to go for an hour. I don't have to stay all day. Set boundaries. But part of the problem with those boundaries and getting to that level of I need to throw things in a public location in a store is that people can't meet your expectations if they don't know those expectations are there. And part of that, going back to self-love and self-confidence and self-worth, is being able to get to a point where you can express those boundaries with people. It's not going to happen overnight where, let's say your boundary is, I'm no longer going to let you give me backhanded compliments. Oh, that outfit looks great on you, but let's say that's just something that you don't want to put up with anymore from some, and you don't have to. You don't have to put up with that. But you have to get to a point where you let them know that that's unacceptable behavior, but you also have to train them as well to stop that behavior. If that's something that you don't want to take on the holidays when it's stressful, then don't go. And you don't have to go. And you don't have to answer your phone. And you can hang up in the middle of a phone call if somebody is trying to guilt you. You just have the confidence to be able to do that in self-love and feel your worth so that you can get to the point where you don't have to tolerate that anymore. I was in my meditation spot today, and I was thinking about this in my favorite place. For me, I zen and I meditate with water. So I was relaxing and enjoying myself around water, and I was thinking about when you submerge yourself in water, you get to a point where you can't breathe, or you're sitting in an uncomfortable situation and it starts to hurt. You instinctively move to a different location, you switch your position, or you come up out of that water, or you're adjusting yourself somehow so that you're no longer in discomfort. But we don't do that when it comes to those emotional things or those physical things that we're doing to ourselves, like physically putting ourselves in a situation that just beats us up mentally and emotionally. So why are we not moving to the point where if I'm submerged in water, if I'm swimming and I need to get my breath, I have to come up out of the water? Why are we not doing that to ourselves when we're putting ourselves in these situations emotionally and mentally, where we continue to be held down and to be submerged in this nightmare of this baggage, emotional wreckage? Why do we continue to do that to ourselves?
And that is the million-dollar question. So many people have so much trauma around their families or where they grew up or, one particular person, whatever it is. And, it's really hard when people have been told their entire lives, well, this is just what you do. It's the holidays. You just grin and bear it. How much more trauma has that caused? Wouldn't it be just easier if people said, you know what, I have something else to do? You don't have to be mean. You don't have to tell people I don't like you, so I don't want to be in your house. You can say, I can't make it. I have something else to do. Even if that something else is you sitting at home watching It's a Wonderful Life for the 45th time. We need to get to a point where we do put ourselves first. And we don't usually do that for some reason. Now, some of us have learned that lesson, and that's great. But still, the holidays, I think, brings up a whole lot of extra baggage. In my first book that I wrote, I talked about a Christmas where I had flown home for the sole purpose of surprising my mother, who had been begging me to come home. And she wasn't home when I got there. I had taken a cab from the airport. But two of my brothers were engaged when I walked in the front door. And that troubled me, tortured me for years afterwards. I felt like, what is the problem? Here it's Christmas and you're trying to kill your brother. What's wrong with you people? And even though I can laugh about it now, it's still a trauma. And the only time of the year I ever think about it is during the holidays. And that's like revisiting over and over and over. And if you have lost someone, there's a recent death in my family, and I was just talking to a friend earlier this morning who her husband died on Christmas Eve. And it's been decades, but every holiday season, it's like she relives that over and over again. And I think the main thing here is that we don't ever know what someone else is going through. The stores are packed. The lines are long. There is a holiday event that was going on out here yesterday. And there are like 1,500 people in this entire area, and probably 1,800 people were at that event. And it was just very stressful. And so many people are hurting. So many people are hurting financially, or they're missing someone, or, they have a loved one who has been ill for a long time. I know several people in that situation. And I think the best thing we can do is just try to keep that in mind when we are out in public. People laugh and joke around about me because I'm such an empath. I pick up what anybody is feeling, whether I mean to you or not, I feel it. And you can be, 3 blocks away, I'm going to feel that angst. I go out in a hazmat suit practically, a spiritual hazmat suit, but still. And anybody that knows me knows that that's what I do. So I would suggest that we all sort of do that. Stay in your own lane. Be kind. Understand that everyone right now who is out in public is stressed. In bigger cities, there are still the mask versus no mask debate. And that has divided people to the point of it is just insane to me. So just kind of be kind. Don't be overly concerned with people that you don't know right now. You can say, happy holidays, have a good day, whatever it is. Be nice, be kind. But right now, so many people are barely holding it together in public that when you start prying, you can cross a line that you don't mean to cross. Even if you have the best of intentions, if you are out shopping and you see someone that literally looks like they could fall apart at any moment, leave them alone.
Yeah.
Truly, leave them alone. Sometimes we think we are well-meaning when we're really just butting in. I've seen that happen time and time and time again, and it really, stay in your own lane. It's a hard thing for a lot of people to do because we tend to want to help people. I really honestly do believe that at our core, people are well-meaning and kind. I really don't think anyone sets out to be a jerk. But sometimes you can come across that way if you're not being mindful of where you are and what you're doing. Just, be observant, be kind, stay in your own lane. And I know a lot of times we say be kind, and for a lot of people, well, they think that means concern yourself with everyone else. That's not what that means at all. It just isn't.
Oh, and it can get so overwhelming.
Yeah.
But also, what are you avoiding by trying to rescue everybody else? That might be something to contemplate, to take a look at. I was just talking to a coach mentor yesterday, and she asked me what my 3 biggest issues were with moving my business forward in the direction that I see. I'm still very slowly moving myself in that direction. I said, well, procrastination, everything else becomes more important than me sitting down and working on my business. Procrastination and absolute 100% honest to God faith that somebody is going to want what I have to give. So that's, I know the universe has my back, but that's the ebb and flow, right? Some days you have good days, some days you might question things a little bit. So, that's it. And for me to start concerning myself about other people could be something a little more deeper, like an avoidance issue. What am I avoiding in my own life? There might be a situation where you do have something to contribute, but is that why you're concerning yourself with other people? You mentioned a really interesting point, and I wanted to just tell you a story about my son. He was at a gas station. He's learning to drive, so my boyfriend had him out on the roads, teaching him the ways of the world as far as driving goes, and they stopped off at a gas station, and there was a conversation about so there's these things that you can get. It's not dip like the traditional tobacco. It's more, I don't even know what it is. There's some sort of nicotine little packets, and there was a conversation about those. And the clerk at the gas station had mentioned how many cigarette packs he smokes a day or something along those lines. I think it was like 3 packs a day that he smokes. And my son was, Whew, that's a lot. I don't know if I could. That's to me, that's a lot. So my son said something along the lines of, "Good Lord, do you know how much money that is a year?" And the clerk just kind of looked at him like was taken aback by, "Wow, not your place, not your business." My son was being very innocent about it. He wasn't being judgmental or obtrusive. He's learning about money, and he's learning about the value of money. And is 3 packs of cigarettes a day worth? When it compounds over time, is it worth that much money for, to smoke? And that's his mindset, right? His mindset is, I'm going to buy a refurbished phone instead of a brand new one. I'm not going to get locked into a contract with the cell phone provider that's only going to want me to upgrade because, that money that I'm spending on those things. So for him, it's more of he's more aware of money, and he's becoming more aware of money and how money works and the benefits of saving. And do I really need to spend the money on this? What is the overall benefit of me smoking 3 packs of cigarettes a day? Sure, you might not be killing somebody right now, but, for him it was how much money somebody is spending. And so he was equating that to his world. However, that person that he was talking to isn't in his world and saw it as offensive. Fortunately, the person was really kind, didn't just go off on my kid. Maybe it triggered him to think about how much money he's spending on cigarettes, and maybe he'll cut back a little bit or something. But, my son was in a position where it didn't turn out to be a bad thing, or somebody wasn't right there on the verge of being at the edge, and that his words didn't cause him to snap. So he was very fortunate about that. But you mentioned that you just don't know where people are, and it can be more of an intrusion, then just say something kind and move on. Unless they draw you into it. But yeah, that reminded me of that story. So.
Yeah, no, it's, your son was very lucky, but you have to consider sometimes, I know with myself, there's a lot of younger people around here. And I've had some of them say some questionable things, and I'm like, wait a minute. Oh, you're a kid. Never mind, And I might later on take them aside and explain, why what they said wasn't appropriate. But I wouldn't have done it in public when it happened. So, yeah. But, the thing that gets me every holiday season, and we talked a little bit about this before the show, is people feeling they have to buy gifts they cannot afford to show someone they love them. No, you don't. No, you don't. And what sense does it make? And I had this very conversation with a friend of mine the other day. What sense does it make to go into debt to buy something for someone you love? And, how long is it going to last, number one? If it's a toy and you're talking about a child, probably maybe through Christmas, and then have to worry about paying the bill. When anyone uses credit cards just to go out and buy something to give to someone else, this is how much I love you, it doesn't make any sense to me. It has never computed to me. I grew up in a household where back in the day where you could actually, go to a bank and get money on a credit card to pay a different credit card. That's the way I was taught about money in my family. They also taught check kiting. So what I learned from my experience is don't do it. Don't do it. If your loved one doesn't know you love them, that is a whole bigger thing than buying them a toy.
Yeah.
Sorry.
My love language is gift giving and food. I want to give you food when you are here. If I have a hot dog and there's 5 people, I'm cutting that hot dog 5 ways so that everybody can have a piece. And it's just something that, that's my way of showing affection. But also, well, and, food is important. So, but I mean, my kids, they know this year it's going to be a simple Christmas. With as crazy as the last, 18 months-ish have been, particularly on a personal level. I mean, you throw in the whole entire world shutting down on top of the things that happen regularly in our lives anyway. And this is a simple Christmas this year. And y'all know I was fired a week ago. Well, a little over a week ago, a week before Thanksgiving, 2 weeks ago. And it was one of the best things that could have happened to me. Hindsight, I kept saying I wanted a break and I deserved a break. I wasn't thinking about losing my job. However, I got what I asked for, right? Be careful, be specific. And I got exactly what I asked for. But, I'm enjoying this downtime right now. I didn't get downtime during COVID. I worked out in the public every day. I was never unemployed during COVID. I was very fortunate for all of that. But I was out in the face of the public. I was in 2 different industries that were essential. And fortunately for us, our employers did not go out of business. So there was that. And so there was a lot of hustle and bustle. And for those of us that worked outside of that, our experiences were different than people who were at home with that stress of, what that brought on for them. So for us, I'm taking this time. I'm purging. I am purging my apartment like I'm moving out of it or like I'm selling my home. It is, everything is coming out of every nook and cranny. Everything is getting cleaned and it's getting touched. And if I want it, I'm keeping it. If I don't, it's leaving my place. And I'm using what I have to repurpose for different organizational systems within my apartment and whatnot. I'm making videos because I really want to put this out there that people can have nice space using what they have without having to go and spend a lot of money. Just a sidebar, back on conversation now. This is something I'm doing for myself. And I'm doing it to prepare for Christmas. I celebrate Christmas, so I am doing it to prepare for Christmas. And the spirit of the season is not going into debt to give people a bunch of crap. The spirit of the season is giving to others out of love, not fear, out of love, not jealousy, and to help those that need help, to spread love and cheer during this time. Yeah, and my kids know it's simple. This year is simple. Decorations, gifts. I've got a couple of homemade gift bath things that I'm going to be preparing for those of us who like to spend time in the bath. And that's, like our Zen, our meditation, our happy place. And, there's going to be other things, simple, homemade, not ridiculously out of budget, or not out of budget, but like ridiculous overspending. And I think this is one of the first years that I'm going to actually be this way about Christmas.
Good for you. You mentioned getting organized and stuff. That is an area of self-help that we always seem to overlook. We talk about, self-love, taking care of yourself, take, hot baths, go for a walk, meditate, do some yoga, those kinds of things that are relatively fun. The harder things are also important when you're taking care of yourself. Things like organizing, like cleaning out. I'm cleaning a particular, it's my plant and bird and turtle room in my house. And
that sounds like an awesome room, by the way.
when we built the house, they called it my atrium room, but it doesn't have an open ceiling. There is a roof over it, so I don't know that it's really an atrium. But I do have a turtle pond in there, and when I had parrots in there, and those kinds of things. So it tends to get dusty, and it tends to get a little musty smelling because, well, there's a pond in the room. So I've been working in there, and it's a big job that I undertook. And even though I kind of kick myself because I still haven't finished it, I know how wonderful it will be and how good that will make me feel when it's done. So those kinds of things are also about self-help and self-love, and they do build your self-esteem because you can look back and see what you've accomplished. So I just thought that was an important point to make because we do always talk about the fluff in self-love, and we don't really talk about the other things that maybe aren't as fun. But really, I think way back in the old days of the 1980s, I had a group of friends, and what we would do is we would buy each other a massage certificate. There was a school for massage there, and they did, like a 90-minute massage, and way back then it was like $25, and it was only if you bought the booklet of, gift certificates. So we always did, and we split them up. So it was like I bought one, French, she bought somebody else, and somebody else ended up buying mine. And that's what we did for each other every Christmas. And I thought that was a wonderful thing because it was something we were all going to be doing for ourselves anyway. And this way we sort of, spread the wealth around. But there are things like that you can do, even if it is something as simple as exchanging cookies. Around here we have a cookie exchange for the holidays every Christmas. And that's gifting without really spending a whole lot of money. I mean, if you don't bake routinely and you don't have flour and sugar and stuff like that on hand, maybe you'd need to spend a little bit. But there's always a way to show someone that you're thinking of them and you love them, and without, going into debt. That's just my personal pet peeve. You shouldn't have to go into debt to show someone you love them. It just doesn't make any sense at all. So what about someone who is grieving? If this is a first holiday without a loved one. I know in my family we've had 3 deaths this year. So there's a lot of people miss this holiday season. But the friend I was talking about, whose husband died last Christmas Eve, is going into Christmas with it being the 1-year anniversary of his death. And she's really, really, really hurting. There are people who have gotten, my divorce was right before Christmas last year, but there are a lot of people who have breakups, or they have a death in the family, or they have someone who is supposed to be home for Christmas, and because they're in the service, all of a sudden their orders got changed, and now they're not going to be home until January. Those kinds of things happen all the time, on any given day. But something about the holidays, we tend to feel like we're supposed to be with loved ones over the holidays. And grief is a funny thing because you think you're doing okay, and then something happens, and you're right back into it again. And the thing I want to say about that is do not feel guilty for how you feel. If you are with loved ones, they know the loss that you've had, and they have a pretty good idea of how you're feeling. So don't try to hide it from them. I saw a post on social media, I think it was Facebook, that said, when you invite a loved one to dinner over the holidays, make sure you invite their grief with them.
Yeah.
Because to invite someone into your home and you know they've suffered a loss, don't expect them to hide it. You know, don't expect that they're not going to feel something and maybe have a weak moment. You know, that goes back into being kind and being compassionate. You don't want to exclude someone because you're afraid they may break into tears at any moment. That's not good either. Extend the invitation and leave it up to them. If they feel like coming, they will. But you have to make sure that you do recognize that they will be bringing their grief along too.
Yeah.
And I think that's something we kind of forget about. We kind of think, oh, it's the holidays, we'll all be happy. We'll bring her here, we'll cheer her up. No, that's not the way it works. You know, it's a wonderful thought, but it may not be the way it works. And you shouldn't make someone feel guilty for grieving. But that's one thing that we tend to forget about over the holidays. We kind of expect
I just
people
want
to be happy.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Oh, done.
No, I just want to say, like, if you're going to invite somebody over who has had that experience, holding space for them is the best thing that you can do. You don't have to have a conversation about it if you feel led to just, you know, ask them how they're holding up. Ask them, you know, let them bow out gracefully. Tell them, you know, I know that this is challenging for you. Thank you so much for being here. You are not obligated to stay any longer than you feel that you need to stay. If you need to go, you know, just let me know and we'll just part ways. You know, you holding space and being there for somebody doesn't mean that you need to talk to them about every single moment of the day about the situation. Just, don't ignore the elephant in the room, but you definitely don't have to run at it with pitchforks and torches. You can, you know, holding space for somebody is the best. Just let them know, I'm here for you. I appreciate you being here. It's really good to see you. You are, you know, I understand if you feel that you need to leave. Do not feel like you are obligated to stay. Do not feel like you have to stay. There will be no offense. I love you. I'm here for you. Hug it out and, you know, enjoy dinner or, you know, whatever the activity is, and just hold space for them. And if you see that they're starting to just maybe not enjoy themselves as much, if you see that at any given time they're going to shed tears, just go and rub their shoulder and give them a hug and tell them that you're here for them, no matter what that is, no matter how they need that. And just that holding space for them is so much better than anything else that you can possibly do.
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody did it was one of the kids that I'm always around for me last year. I was not in the best mood at this time last year. And I was at a friend's house, and it wasn't a Christmas thing. It was actually a birthday. And I just started getting really weepy. And this teenage girl came up behind me, reached over my shoulder, and dropped a kitten in my lap and said, here, hold this for a while. And it was just, she could not have said something that would have been as insightful as giving me a warm fuzzy to hold. And, you know, but that was because she knows me.
Yeah.
And, you know, animals are my biggest thing. I mean, you know, I don't care what kind of animal either. But things like that, or things like if someone is breaking down, I had this happen several years ago where a friend had lost, this was a child, but anyway, grief was, you know, present. And I said, do you want to go and maybe lay down in my bedroom for a while, or let's put on some music or, something in private. And that was very helpful for that person. But you want to give them the option, and you want them to feel like they're not damaged because this other person is no longer in the picture. And sometimes we unwittingly do that. We think, oh, well, I don't want to bother them. Not to be bothered. They want to be invited with the option of turning you down. That's basically what people in grief want. They want to feel like they are still welcome and they are included, but they have the option to not be if they don't want to participate. So long walks are good stress relievers any time of year, but especially during the holidays or in grief or, just being around people you just assume not be around. Take a walk. Take a long walk. There's many ways to relieve stress, but really I have found that one to be a very, very, very good one. Do you have any others besides, if you find yourself in a situation that gets tense, what would you do besides just, is there an option to stay and get over it or no?
No, I have a previous obligation with my couch, and all they have to know is I have a previous obligation that is going. You can even set that boundary when you walk in the door. You can even set that boundary. You can say, I have an obligation at 3:00. I do need to be somewhere else. I'm so grateful that you're allowing me to your home to, spend this time with you and yours, whatever the case may be. I will have to cut out at 2 or 3 or whatever time you set. And you know what? You can change that time too, because you're allowed to do that. You are allowed to take control of your affairs and your business and your obligations or lack thereof. And you don't have to explain to anybody what that obligation is. In the back of your head, you know that couch is waiting for you, and you are absolutely welcome to take advantage of that opportunity. One thing you were saying, with grief and whatnot, I get very emotionally overwhelmed, more of like sensory overload. Let's make it that way. When I start acting like I'm hangry, excuse me, a lot of times it's because I have just peopled way too long, and I need to go and unpeople. I need to be by myself for a while because I just kind of absorb everything. I'm an observer. I like to watch people. I do like to have conversation, but I'm not one of those that can go all day long. I do have to have that time to regroup. So if you're even if your obligations are not necessarily going to cause frustration because of the people that you're going to be around, but because you're going to be around people, introvert, for example, as myself, you're still allowed to do that for yourself as well. If you really feel obligated to go to the company Christmas party or holiday celebration, whatever they call it, where you work, you don't have to stay all night. You're absolutely allowed to leave, and to your obligation with your couch, you're absolutely allowed to do that. And it's not just with people that might trigger some trauma, as far as like family members go. You're allowed to do that with coworkers and other types of activities as well.
Right. One of the things that someone has messaged me with a question: what if you are in a situation, you're in a holiday party, and all of a sudden someone just really irritates you? How do you excuse yourself? And I just told her right now that I would just leave. But after I said that, I was at a holiday party years ago with my ex. It was his work-related thing. And I was perfectly fine until someone made some comment. It wasn't even about me, but I heard it, and I was appalled by the comment. And I grabbed my ex, and I said, I need to go. And he refused to go. So I went outside, and I sat in the car. while I was doing that, as I was exiting the door, I hear the woman who the comment was aimed at shrieking at the top of her lungs so that everyone would hear her, "I am not having a good time at this party. This jackass is rude. I'm going now." Now, I don't recommend doing that, but I have to say it was effective for her. So what would you do if under that circumstance?
Oh, my God. Let me just say that there comes a point in time in life where I don't know if we just naturally go through this or whatnot, but I get tired of putting up with people's shit. And I'm pretty blunt anymore. There are times where decorum is required, and I might reel myself back in. However, take a moment to think about worst case scenario. And then what's the next worst case scenario? And what's the next one after that? And what's the next one after that? And is it really as bad as you think it is if you stand there and actually confront the person and speak your mind? And you can do it in a polite way. I'm all about shrieking at the top of your lungs about how a person is acting. Because if they're acting that way towards you, they're probably the company or a Christmas party or celebratory jackass anyway, and they probably need to be called out for their behavior. And so, for example, you're at a company, okay, I'm going to take my example. This is actually real life. I was at a company function, and really, so it was a large function. There was, good 30 people at this function, and I knew what the situation was going to turn into long before I even showed up to this dinner. And we were going through the evening, drinks were drank, and as a non-drinker of alcoholic beverages, it got to the point for me where when I knew the turning point was everybody was starting to drink more and more, and I didn't want to babysit anybody. I didn't want to drive anybody home, and I didn't want to be involved in any of the shenanigans that alcohol bring about, no matter what situation you're in. I mean, there were girls crying in the bathroom because they, had too much to drink, and they just got really emotional crying in the bathroom, and there was behaviors that shouldn't have been had at a company function. And so I knew I didn't want to be a part of that. So I made it a point to know what time I was going to dip out so that I could be home doing my night routine, because at no given time was that more important than my own personal well-being, my own personal mental state. And I didn't want to break the small routine that I have at night. I wanted to maintain, and knew that I didn't want to be out until 2 or 3 in the morning because I still had to get up and go to work the next day. And God, I'm sounding like such an adult here. Like, there were certain things I didn't want to break out of. And so I made it a point to know that at that time I was allowed to leave, and that their business, their behaviors weren't my business. That had nothing to do with me. And I was able to go, and I walked out the door, and I did not feel guilty about it, because ultimately I stayed in my lane. And what happens to them as a result of their actions is on them, not on me. So you are allowed to leave. And you don't have to excuse yourself. You don't have to give anybody any reason whatsoever. Go. You're allowed to do that.
That takes a degree of self-esteem and self-confidence to leave. I know many people don't have that. Back in my younger days, I would not have been able to leave. I would have felt obligated to be where I was absolutely miserable because I thought I was supposed to be there. And it takes putting yourself above, or first. Just put yourself first.
Yeah.
And if you put yourself first, you will leave. It took a long time for me to learn that one. And I know there's at least one caller that I am aware of has been working on that very thing, especially during the holidays. It seems to be really difficult. Everyone wants to be thought well of. And that's just human nature. But what you have to come to terms with is it really doesn't matter what they think. If you are putting yourself first, and that's what you need to do. You need to just put yourself first, especially
and I want to add to that, as far as if they aren't understanding of that, they're not your people. And there are people out there who will be your people, who will understand that. And, you know, it takes a lot of confidence and courage and whatnot, but it also takes a certain degree of being sick and tired of being sick and tired. Like when is that point of, I just don't want to take this anymore? And sometimes it results in screaming at the top of your lungs that somebody is being a complete jerk and that you're not having fun and you're going home. And sometimes it can be a little, the reaching point can be, now here's my boundary, and the worst case scenario is y'all don't like me and I have to find another job.
Right.
And there might be a little bit of discomfort and a little bit of upheaval in that process, but ultimately there's going to be a better fit if those people are not kind enough and not responsive enough to understand where you are coming from. And going into the company behaviors is an entirely different show. I think that's like a month-long series right there, because the world is shifting, you know, as far as company culture, and we're no longer wanting to be slaves to a company. We're giving you something in exchange for something else. You don't own us. And I see a huge shift in that. It's not all companies are on board, and then a lot of companies are, but not necessarily everybody within that company is on board or whatnot. But you are not obligated to stay, and that's where that worst case scenario comes in. Well, what's the worst thing that can happen? They won't like me. Okay, if they don't like me, what happened? What's the worst thing that can happen from that? And then what's the worst thing that can happen from that? And what's the worst thing that can happen from that? And when you get to that bottom of the worst thing that can happen, ask yourself, is that likely?
Right. Exactly.
And then, because many times they're not going to remember. And if they're taking stock in all of those things that you do wrong so they can throw it back in your face later, you need to find new people. Let me repeat that for you again. You need to find new people. They are out there. They are absolutely out there.
Sometimes it takes a while to find them, but it's worth finding them, trust me. Some companies have very, very toxic work environment, and that always makes things difficult, not only for the employees, but in the case of events where spouses are particularly supposed to attend, as well as sometimes even they want to. Why, I don't know. But it really, when you have a toxic work environment, you have to think, is this an event that I have to go to? And is this something I want to expose people I love to? And I think just asking yourself those questions would probably clear up a lot of problems that different people have with a toxic work environment. It doesn't excuse the toxic work environment, but you can at least protect yourself from it. And please protect your significant other and children from it as well. I know one particular very, very large company who would probably hire a hitman if I told their name. They have an extremely toxic work environment, to the point where people get sick working there. And it is just so horrific. The couple of times that I've been invited to events, I'm just like, no, thank you. Nope. Gotta wash the dog that day. Sorry. Because I know, how toxic it is, because I know people who work there. So, kind of judge. And during the holiday when you're stressed anyway, do you really want to do a work kind of thing? I mean, even if it's a holiday party, and sometimes particularly because it is a holiday party. Maybe, limit your stress. But I think that's all I have. I don't know that we've really helped anyone who is stressed over the holidays. I think the best thing anybody can do is to stop and center yourself and take some deep breaths and then decide what to do from there. And know this too shall pass. I mean, seriously, it will. Do you have any last thoughts for this week?
Actually, no. I don't. I feel like this conversation is going to be picked up next week, though.
Yeah.
I don't. No, I don't have anything. I'm trying. I don't have anything.
Okay. All right. Yep. We will probably talk. I'm sure we will get comments, and we will talk about something related to this next show. So thanks, everyone, for listening. I will feel much better next week, I'm sure. And we will talk to you then. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.